And get started.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting of the Plan Commission to order at 6:31 p.m. Thank you for being here, everyone. Thank you for your time, talent, and patience in advance. I did want to make a couple of comments to open up. As was acknowledged, Commissioner Kudo has stepped forward to run for trustee this April. So thank you very much for being willing to serve. And of course, as you all know, we'll keep campaigning out of, I'm sure you'll be relieved to know that we'll keep campaigning out of our procedures with these Plan Commission meetings. So that'll be a relief to everyone. And also, I wanted to say that there may be some that are wondering with regards to item number 3. There is the East Capitol Neighborhood Association did file a complaint against the Board of Appeals regarding their decision. And so one might be wondering if we can take action on item number 3 this evening. And I conferred with staff and Attorney Bayer, and the answer is yes. So we don't have to worry about that. So moving on, let's call the roll, please.
President McKeag?
Here.
Trustee Bockhorst?
Excused.
Eric Kudo?
I'm here.
Barbara Kiley Miller?
Here.
Therese Klein?
Present.
Josh Pollock? And Dan Wickland?
Here.
Okay, thank you. So Crystal, we'll just assume that Commissioner Pollock will be joining us, and you can just acknowledge at what point he joins.
Okay. Sure.
And make note of it. Thank you. All right, so moving on to item 2, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 28th.
I'll second.
Great, there's a motion by Commissioner Kiley Miller, seconded by Commissioner Kudo. Any discussion of those minutes? All right, seeing none, hearing none. Let's take a vote, show of hands or voice to approve the minutes as presented. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, looks like 5. Any opposed? Okay. Commissioner Pollock, thanks for joining us. Did you hear the, we're approving the minutes. Did you want to weigh in on that? Okay.
Vote for approval.
All right.
Sorry for the delay.
No problem. So that's 6-0. All right, moving on to item 3, which I will read. Oh. All right, sorry, I closed that file by accident. Crystal, could you read that agenda item, please?
Agenda item number 3 is consideration of an application for a zoning review to confirm the side setback at 2418, 20, and 28 East Capitol Drive as required per 535-21 C6C2.
Excellent. Thank you. So we'll move through this as we usually do. We'll have a presentation from staff. Then I'd like Attorney Bayer to offer some guidance, as this is a pretty peculiar, even though we've handled these before, given the amount of discussion and remaining opposition. I just want to be clear that we are reviewing and acting within our charge this evening. Then we'll have a public hearing followed by deliberation. So I'll hand it over to Director Griepentrag at this time.
Sure. Thank you, President McKeag. As noted on your screen, we are here for a side setback confirmation at 2418, 20, and 28 East Capitol Drive, a redevelopment of 3 parcels into one for the construction of a 39-unit 4-story apartment building. Project Parcel and Structure Overview. Joe Stanton of Three Leaf Development LLC applied for a zoning review to confirm the zoning code standards related to the proposed redevelopment at 2418 20 and 28 East Capitol Drive. The corresponding zoning confirmation letter dated January 18th, 2022 noted that the property was zoned B3 mixed-use commercial district and identified the need for a review of the side setback on the east street side from the Plan Commission. For reference, the Design Review Board is scheduled to review the proposed architecture of the building at the regular meeting on January 27th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Per Village Code 535-21B6C2, the side setback of corner lots within this district shall have a build-to line of 20 feet from the street curb line, except that side yard setbacks on corner lots shall be reviewed by the Plan Commission to determine whether a 20-foot build-to line or another corner lots side yard build-to line is appropriate due to parking considerations and the layout of the intersection. A build-to line is a line within a lot parallel to the adjacent street curb line or a lot along at least 50% of a building facade must be built. A build-to line is established to create an even or more or less even building facade line on a street. A build-to line is also referred to as a maximum setback. This is counter to a typical minimum setback, which is the line on a lot where the structure shall be located behind. Based on the proposed site plan, the building will be set back 0.6 feet from the property line and 21.6 feet from the face of the curb at its southernmost point. The proposed building is set back 1.3 feet from the property line and 22.4 feet from the face of the curb at its northernmost point. Since the property line itself is approximately 21 feet from the curb line, accomplishing the 20-foot build-to line is not practical or even possible. However, the code requires the Plan Commission to review the setback and offers discretion based on parking considerations and the layout of the intersection. Review and approval. The Plan Commission is being asked to confirm the acceptability of the proposed side setback in relation to the code stated considerations of parking and intersection layout. Staff comment. Based on review of the application, staff has no objections to the proposed structure location and notes that the new building will be constructed nearly adjacent to the property line, meeting the desired build-to line as detailed in the code. The intersection of East Capitol Drive and North Stoll Avenue is perpendicular and features a pedestrian extension to increase visibility. Due to the proposed location of the southernmost driveway, parking will be prohibited to the intersection. The building is set back 5.2 feet from the rear property line, and the property is separated from a residentially zoned and developed neighboring property by a public alley. On a general note, staff would recommend that the current code, which details a build-to line established on the curb line, be updated with a build-to line or zone established on the property line. Discussion of this regulation is expected to take place within the commercial zoning update. For reference, here's an overview aerial of the question showing from Prospect to Stoll Avenue, the condition of existing driveways within neighboring parcels. Suggested motion, if so desired, is included within your packet. And with that, I would turn it back over to President McKeag. I can leave the screen on or take it off. I'd be happy to do either.
I think you can take it off at this time.
Okay.
Thanks. So Attorney Baer, can you just sort of offer the legal parameters with which our consideration should take place within?
Certainly, thank you. The review is relatively limited tonight. The question really applies only to side yard build-to lines on corner lots. And the specific language that Bart had up on the screen there, I just want to read that back to you because I think it's it will help the understanding. 535-21B6C2 says that sets the build-to lines for this type of construction essentially at 20 feet is the default setting. But here's what it says. It says, except that side yard setback on corner lots shall be reviewed by the Plan Commission to determine whether a 20-foot build-to line or another corner lot side yard build-to line is appropriate due to parking considerations and the layout of the intersection. So Bart and I were talking about this earlier, and I was thinking of a hypothetical example that might present itself to demonstrate why many decades ago this particular provision may have been put in there. And the only thing I can think of, the only thing Bart and I could come up with is that there was an unusual corner somewhere that maybe wasn't at a 90-degree angle, like a typical corner, or there are a couple of streets, just as a hypothetical example, in the municipality west of Oakland Avenue where the streets are very wide and then they narrow towards the other end of the street. And for an example, if you built a large structure in the area where the street narrowed, and then people driving along that road or parking along that road that were pulling out from the parking spot on the curb, you know, other motorists might not see them as they're pulling by because there's people that are going to be pulling out from a blind area that might, you know, the view might be blocked by the structure that given the build to line where the street narrows. So it's just an example that we could think of where, hey, why is this here? Why is this provision here? At some point in the municipality, there had to be an unusual circumstance like that and said, hey, let's put an extra layer of review in here. Let's have the plan commission take a look at this and say, hey, because of those issues with respect to the construction of the individual intersection or parking on the street, do we want to push the build to line a little bit further in or a little bit further back? So the jurisdiction here is basically, do we want to move the build to line, and that's basically it. So if you do that, it should be based upon substantial evidence, some form of substantial evidence to move the build to line one way or another. So again, it's very limited jurisdiction. It's, are we okay with the build to line that's being proposed and recommended by staff, or do we want to move it in or out based upon the criteria that's been discussed? So unless there's any questions, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Commissioner Kylie Miller, do you have a question at this time?
I do, and this could be answered either by Attorney Bear or by Bart. In our packet on page 8, as part of the memo from Mr. Grippentrog to the developer on the second page, citing that code, it says per 535-21C, the village's central district design guidelines shall apply to the construction of new buildings in the zoning district. The design of the development, and it says, quote, will be reviewed by village staff, the design review board, and plan commission for its suitability for a given site, compatibility with adjacent development, and consistency with the goals of improving the design quality of Shorewood's built environment, end quote. Anyway, so my question was, yeah, we didn't do that. All we looked at was parking exception and then the setback for tonight. So that kind of confused me a little bit. Is there something that this body should have done per this code that we did not? And how does, you know, just based on the inclusion in here, I was just a little thrown and I was just wondering if someone could help explain that to us. Thanks.
Bart, do you want to address that? As you authored the memo, or do you want me to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I can say that the design guidelines have a lot of things which don't jibe with the actual code, which is part of the reason why I have for 4 years now, requested that we do a commercial zoning update to clean up those ambiguities. It is very clear within the code that the design review board reviews the architecture of the building. So with respect to anything within that quote from the design guidelines, I would just point back to the code sections. We are here tonight specifically for the side setback. The design review board on Thursday is there specifically for the architecture of the building. That is how I have processed all applications with respect to the design guidelines and their applicability. And that's all I can say to that.
Okay, so we haven't like skipped a step or just overlooked something that we were supposed to be doing. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from plan commissioners before we open the public hearing? And those would be really technical questions for either Bart or Nathan at this time. Commissioner Klein?
Bart, maybe it'd be helpful if you just point to the part that we're talking about on the screen. Because we're talking about the setback, not on the side of the property, but on the front of the property. The side, the corner, might just be helpful for everybody, including me especially.
Sure. Let me make sure. Am I unmuted or not?
Well, while you're looking for that, I think the one on the bottom of page 5 shows the minimum and maximum setback in the lower corner there. That might be helpful.
So you are looking at the street side yard here, so Stowell, so this street side yard build to line within the code is defined as 20 feet from the curb line or as determined by the plan commission. The front of the building is on Capitol Drive. That is not in question. That is not identified as a plan commission review item. It's the street side yard along Stowell. And once again, just for reference, that's 53521B6C. With respect to corner lots, the side yard, this relates specifically to the side yards.
Okay, thanks.
And so what's being presented this evening does meet code?
I mean, generally, yes, it's impractical and impossible to meet the 20-foot requirement. And so for all intents and purposes, this does meet the intent of the code. The code does specifically say, however, the plan commission shall confirm the setbacks. So if the plan commission were to determine that a different setback were required with, whatever evidence they have, that would be the opportunity tonight to do so.
Thank you.
So Bart, in reading in what you said there, and also, you provided that letter from our resident that was concerned about the setback. This is actually farther back than the 20 feet, right? So this has, if it were concerned, someone could, and to meet the requirement, actually build this 2 feet closer to the sidewalk. They're actually building it 2 feet further back than code requires or asks, if possible.
Correct. They're 0.6 feet back from their property line, so they would have to adjust the property line to get closer. Quite honestly, I don't think that's practical, but yes, they are behind their property line, both at the southern and northern borders of their property. So here on the southern corner, it's 1.6, and then just based on the angles of the development, it's 1.3 up on the northern corner.
And as I'm off mute here, but as you go further north on the block, the houses are well back. It's not like we're sticking out further than.
Correct. You can't really see it here, but yes, the houses north on Stowell have a residential setback in their front yard, which per standard code is typically 25 feet. However, many of those houses might have been developed before that standard was there, so I can't speak as to whether or not they all have 25 feet, but residential properties do have a greater setback requirement.
All right, other questions or clarifications regarding the presentation or the legal guidance? Commissioner Kylie Miller?
Yeah, just, I think Bart just mentioned that the development is skewed, so I could see like the setback at the north end of the building is slightly different than at the front end, the south end. So I wasn't sure, is that just so that it lines up evenly on Capitol, and then somehow those east-west streets are just a little off, so that's why it's just like a smidge turned a little bit. We don't need to be concerned about that at all. They're not the same, or?
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about that. The applicant, Joe Stanton, is here. Perhaps he might be able to explain that if he's familiar exactly with why things aren't perpendicular over there. I'm guessing it's based on the platting of the land, but I don't know for certain.
Yep. Oh, that's exactly correct. Yep.
All right, Commissioner Kudo, you had your hand up, but nope. Okay.
No, Commissioner Wickland asked my question.
You read your mind. Excellent. All right. So I'd like to move on to the public hearing at this time, opening the public hearing at 6:50. Let's see, at this time, we will take comments pertaining to the setback are welcome. I would like to ask for a 3-minute maximum in time sharing, camera on, name and address. And if the Plan Commission needs to hear more from any one speaker, they can ask the chair during deliberation. So at this time, all right. Mr. Walsh, is that you?
You're muted.
Mr. Walsh, you're muted. Can you hear us? There you go.
There you go. Sorry about that. I just asked that the time limit, which is somewhat arbitrary, be suspended. There's a couple things I'd like to deal with. I'll do it quickly. I'll get through them as quickly as possible. But we're basically here because the code is inconsistent. Is that true? There is a conflict in the code. So the project doesn't meet the code. Is that a fair characterization? We have to clarify that this is okay.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes?
you are welcome. You can make comments at this time. We're not taking, you can state questions and then we can
Okay,
take
all
those.
right. Okay, we'll just, this is the idea. Okay. So first of all, the side yard setback for the under 535.21 for these properties is a 10-foot minimum when it abuts 2-family and single-family residential districts. So I've always wondered why. We always had this problem, why there's a 0 setback, because it says in the code that it's a 10-foot setback. Okay, it's clear as day in the code. And then with respect to the village attorney's comments on why this seems like such a strange thing to wonder, the reason why you have these exceptions and the ability for the Plan Commission to review these things is because there are always circumstances where the Plan Commission, which is a group of neighbors and a group of villagers, should look at this and make sure it's appropriate. So in this case, we have a very narrow road and we have a driveway that is just feet from a state highway, across from a driveway that is just feet from a state highway. That's across from an AT&T switch box that's covered. And I'd like to share my screen briefly. I'd like to show you a picture, if I could.
I'm sorry, Mr. Walsh, those are things that you should submit in advance. And also the driveways are not part of the setback.
I understand they're not part of the setback, but the Plan Commission is there to review the situation so as to wonder what to approve here, whether this setback is appropriate or not. And we've been through this over and over again. There's now 5 driveways that enter into 140 feet of street off a state highway. And it is inappropriate to have a setback so minimal. So the code says that there should be a 10-foot setback here. And you are arguing whether there should be a 0 setback or a 20-foot build-to line when the code seems very, very clear that there's a 10-foot setback.
I would recommend that you make your statements, and then during deliberation, if we need to hear more, we can address
Okay.
that.
All right, and then finally, I'd like to ask, so as a general provision in the zoning code, under Article 3, 535-9 sub G, it says site restrictions. It says that, and this applies to basically all the properties in the village. And I actually have run into this a number of times on other properties that it says, and I'll quote it here, at least 30% of each lot shall be planted with grass, shrubs, trees, or other form of vegetation. I don't understand why that's not applicable here, because the floor area ratio, or the lot coverage ratio is 90%. I yield.
Thank you. Trustee Stokebrand.
Thank you. I had a comment here that is also directed to Trustee Bockhorst. I understand that she's not there, but I'll go ahead and read it because I think it's still relevant. I asked President McCaig and Trustee Bockhorst to recuse themselves from voting on this item due to a potential conflict of interest. In 2020 and 2019, respectively, they received significant campaign donations from a party that stands to benefit from this development moving forward. As I have said before, Shorewood residents should be able to live, work, and invest in the village. However, when campaign donations can present a potential conflict of interest, it is the responsibility of the elected officials to recuse themselves. The residents of Shorewood expect and deserve clean, open, transparent government. This is why campaign finance records are required by state law and subject to open records requests to help ensure clean, open, and transparent government. This should not be a contested request, nor should it be controversial, but rather this should be standard operating procedure for elected officials in the village. In the interest of full disclosure, and because we are in a local news desert, I will disclose I was a trustee for candidate in 2019 and I lost. Also, I was elected in 2020 and appointed to the Plan Commission that year, and I was removed by President McKeag in 2021. Finally, I did vote for this project in 2020, the initial waiver of the parking requirements for this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, oh, do we need name and address from those two speakers?
I know both of them. That's okay.
Okay, all right. Ms. Desang.
Just gonna. Sorry, I don't, oh, here, I can get my camera, I'm sorry. Karen Desing, 3952 North Stoll Avenue. I just have a question. I'm sorry, I just have a question for the Planning Commission. Just to understand on this project and any subsequent projects, how do you review for appropriateness at the intersection? What is your process? What type of data are you looking for? I'm assuming that you're getting some type of feedback from the police department or from a traffic engineer. So if you could explain that process, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to take all comments and then we can, and questions, and then we can address them. All right.
Yes, yes, I have a comment. Bill Desing, 3952 Stoll. And a comment would be that I completely agree with Kathy Stokebrand's comments on the campaign contributions. And I would ask either Kathy or the president to reveal how much those contributions were and who they were from, for the record. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. As I said, I'll take all comments and questions and then address them from there.
Sorry, President, can I just confirm that Crystal is getting all these questions so we can go back through them in the end? Cool, thank you.
Okay. Is there, Mr. Walsh would like to speak again. Is there anyone else on the call who hasn't spoken? Dr. Rosine, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit concerned about the general process in the Plan Commission, the earlier question regarding what exactly the Plan Commission is reviewing. And I understand today is strictly a side yard setback question, but what about reviewing the appropriateness of the actual project for the village, for the local community? I know we talked about parking, we had that issue. That was a specific meeting, specific exceptions, but at what point does the Plan Commission take on its responsibility to address the actual appropriateness of the project for the location within the village, and sticking to the thoughts of keeping the quality of life in the village for the residents and the existing businesses what it is? And we've been there for over 30 years on that corner. I think we provided a nice service to the village, been a good member of the community, and don't feel in any way that there was a consideration the way the driveways, the ingress and egress from the proposed development are so close to our driveways across the street. We lose a number of spaces right there, but more than that, that can be made up elsewhere. But more than that, it really presents to me a more dangerous situation for the intersection, increasing the congestion. And I don't know that that's I don't ever recall that specific aspect being addressed. It was more, here's the project, these are the variances we need to get this project approved. Let's move forward and do it. And let's see if we can make the parking exception. Let's see if we can grant these setbacks. I understand there's always side yard setback issues, but I just don't know that the Plan Commission, if that's in fact the appropriate body, has taken it upon themselves to truly address the entire project and its ramifications for this immediately surrounding community.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, you'd like to speak again?
Yes, please. I'd only like to say that with respect to plan commissions generally across the marketplace, that is their typical operation. I'm a commercial real estate broker. I deal with plan commissions across all of southeastern Wisconsin up to Appleton and Green Bay. And I've never, ever been in a situation where the entitlements were provided before the plans were provided for review by the plan commission. That's it.
Thank you. All right, are there any other members of the public who would like to be heard at this time? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. Attorney Bear, I have a procedural question. Do we need to respond to the questions and comments as part of the public hearing because they were asked during a public hearing, or can we move into deliberation and share those?
Well, my recommendation would be to make sure we've got accepted all any comments from the public that want to speak on the matter, and then at that time, when there are no more left, to close the public hearing. And then as the chair of the meeting, you can decide how you want to respond to that, or deliberate, or have interplay between the commissioners and the public. That's up to the body. There's no specific legal requirement that you go down point by point and address everything that's been raised. It's certainly up to the body and how it wants to proceed.
Thank you. All right, one final call, or any other members of the public who would like to be heard? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing at 7:03 p.m. And now moving into deliberation amongst the Plan Commission members. So I have, let's see. Let's go, well, first of all, so there are some that are directed to me, some that are directed to each plan commissioner, showing how your decision making is. That I think can be part of our deliberation. We'll go around and say what your position is once a motion is on the floor, and then and how you came to that conclusion. And then I think Attorney Bear or Director Griepentrag, if you can address the sort of the role of the Plan Commission in terms of this project, given that it was built to zoning code and that comprehensive look at appropriateness, as well as Mr. Walsh's, some of his are statements, and some are assertions that our code is not being followed.
Well, all I can tell you is certainly, people have raised a number of different issues that are within the purview of the Plan Commission at various times when those issues are brought before the Plan Commission. Certainly the Plan Commission plays an important role in all of those various items that were discussed, but in particular this evening, there's a limited matter that the body has jurisdiction over, and that really is, to boil it down to its essence, based upon specific parking considerations in this particular block next to this property, or based upon specific layout of this intersection, do you want to move the build to line in or out? And if the answer to that question is yes, how far? That's basically what's before you. Is there any reason to move the line? And if so, how far are you going to move it in or out? That's really the jurisdictional issue that's agenda this evening, and that's the limited issue that's before the body right now.
So basically, agree or disagree, that's what's before us tonight, and that's what we're going to take up. And agree or disagree, we haven't skipped any steps, and we are following our own ordinance and code. All right, so in terms of the comment to me, as far as recusing myself and whether this is a conflict of interest, Trustee Stokebrand has raised this to me before. I've confirmed with Attorney Bayer. I did receive a campaign donation from Mr. Paul Hackbarth, who was the former owner of that property. I believe Kathy probably has the amount on hand. Was it 250, Kathy?
It was, I believe.
Okay. So I confirmed with Attorney Bayer, and Attorney Bayer, do I have a conflict of interest on voting on this item or previous matters regarding?
Accepting a campaign donation does not preclude an elected official from presiding or voting on a matter over which they would otherwise have jurisdiction. If that were the case, nobody would ever be voting on anything. So yeah, I mean, it's appropriate to talk about. It's appropriate to have transparency on those issues, but as a matter of law, it doesn't necessarily preclude somebody from voting on a matter that may in some way pertain to or be of interest to the person that made a campaign donation.
Mm-hmm. So I would go further to say that, so yeah, I'm not going to recuse myself or give him my vote because A, because I don't have to legally. B, because that campaign donation did not influence my position on this. C, for that matter, I've been contacted by people who did vote for me, who did not donate to my campaign, who have said they're disappointed in me because I didn't vote the way they wanted me to. And I would just like to take this opportunity to say, I will have conversations with anyone. But Trustee Stokebrand, I think you and I are very different. So while I respect your opinion on this, I would welcome the opportunity to continue talking with you about the things we disagree about and how we can work together. So moving on, in terms of Dr. Rosine's question or dilemma around Director Griepentrag.
Sure. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the process with respect to what does get reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. I think that might answer several questions that were raised. And so the applicant applied for a zoning review, the results of which are included within your packet. I have them as page 7 and 8 in my packet, but that's the initial packet. I'm not sure if that's the same numbers or not. Barbara had mentioned the same letter prior to this question. And so the results of the zoning review are in there. The use of the premises as a multifamily is permitted use. Permitted uses do not get reviewed by the Plan Commission for anything further with respect to use. The Plan Commission does have a recommendation body to the village board to confirm or to change those uses. We are going through a process right now to do so. But the code as written allows a multifamily building on this in this particular area. The setbacks, once again, are within there. The front setback, the rear setback. Of note, the rear setback has been notched 10 feet from the property line at its westernmost section. That is the only place in which the property line abuts a residential property directly adjacent to. The remainder of the property abuts an alley, which is not a residentially zoned property. It's an alley with its own distance separation between the property lines. The side setback on the west, that does have a 0 setback. That is standard. If you go up and down the commercial district, you'll see that it's intended to provide a consistent wall of development within the commercial district. The side setback is the one that the Plan Commission is specifically being asked to review. And as noted on the top of that page, that is where this is brought to us tonight because as a result of this zoning review, that is the one matter that the Plan Commission was asked to weigh in on. The rest of it is reviewed with the code that has been adopted by the board and is reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Administrator, which is my role. So the results of my zoning review are here. This was given to the applicant so they knew what their process was moving forward. And we are here tonight to review that build to line of 20 feet or a different line, depending on what the results of your confirmation are. So that's just an overview of what we're here to do. The zoning code does have these standards within them and they are open for change, but right now this is what they are.
So we are administering that, agree or disagree?
Correct. Yes, I would agree.
And then Trustee Stokebrand, you also made the comment at the end that I removed you from the Plan Commission. So did you want me to comment on that as well?
It's up to you, President McCaig. You're the chair. I would just like to point out that just because something is legal doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
Yep. So we've heard from your perspective. So moving on, at this time, I would entertain a motion or questions from the commissioners. Mr. Wickland, Commissioner Wickland.
I guess as we keep talking about this, and maybe I get confused over and over again, but Bart, reiterate for me, if this thing was an average, and I know this lot is weird, right? But if it was, you show it's 21.6 to 22.4 feet from the face of the curb. If that were 1.6 feet to 2.4 feet difference, so it was 20 feet from the curb. So if it was moved closer to the curb, now we know it can't because of the way the lot line is, but if it were moved closer, would this ever be before us? Like if it's 20 feet exactly, does something come before us still or no?
It still would.
Okay.
The code asks for it to be 20 feet, or if they apply for something else, that would be reviewed. But yes, any of the street side corner lots would be confirmed by the Plan Commission for their acceptability in consideration of parking and the intersection of layout.
Right, so looking at your chart, it's not before us for this reason because it's not compliant. It's with us because it just is supposed to be reviewed no matter what it is.
Correct. Yeah, it's not that it's not compliant. They're not seeking a variance. This is the process that the current zoning code outlines.
Good, thank you.
Commissioner Kylie Miller.
Thanks. As this setback in that corner of the building relates to the intersection, there were a couple of things I didn't know based on what was and it was not included in the diagrams on page 6 of our packet. I think Bart had that up earlier. And then on page 21, where there's the artistic rendering of that corner, it looks like, and what's missing is the stop sign at that intersection. So, when a car pulls out of the garage, I can't really tell where's the crosswalk because of that brick paving. So when a car pulls out, I don't know where the stop sign is. So is there room for a car to pull out and then park or wait at that stop sign before then pulling into the intersection? And both in the diagram and that rendering, it's really hard to tell because of those pavers. So the safety factor, and I don't know if the building being set back, anymore or any closer or setback further north would affect that. So I'm not sure if either the developer or Bart could answer that for us, because again, if safety as it relates to the setback and the intersection is one of the things we're supposed to consider. It's hard to tell with the renderings that we've been giving. There's no stop sign, and I don't know the distance from the driveway to the crosswalk. So that's kind of what I'm wondering.
I guess I would just respond that we're here for the setback, not the distance of the driveway to the intersection. I appreciate that as a question. I did ask the village's contracted engineer, Phil Sudzik of Strand, this afternoon, just in preparation for the meeting, to confirm whether or not there were any local or state requirements, because Capitol Drive is a state highway with respect to the location of that driveway, and he confirmed there are none. Obviously, there are, desires for perhaps differences, but there's no requirement that it can't be there. And so the location of the driveway, once again, is not what we're here to discuss. It's the setback, how far off of Stoll Avenue the building would be here for. So I guess that would just be my comment. This is not pushing the building north or south, it'd be pushing the building east or west, and that would not change the location of that driveway. I don't know if Joe, if you have an exact answer for how far it is from the intersection, but I don't have it either on this scale at least.
Yeah, I don't have the exact answer either. I definitely will check and have an answer for you on Thursday for sure. But
yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. To answer your question, I don't foresee that being an issue where the stop sign currently is. I understand what you're saying. It's not marked on the current plan. We'll definitely bring that up with our civil engineer to have that maybe added with some dimensions. But yeah, I don't see that being an issue, but I definitely will get an answer for you.
And I know that you did a traffic study this past summer, but I think that was before we saw the plans. So, I mean, just based on that one drawing of the southeast elevation, the way that, even though there's that pedestrian bump out, it looks like a car pulls out and there's really, and there'd be like right on top of a pedestrian. So if we're supposed to consider how the building is placed on the lot, I really need to know where are the cars going? If safety is a big issue that we've heard from residents and from the doctor who works at the clinic across the street, I think that's a question that we need to have answered.
Understood. Absolutely.
And maybe it's just, the apron of the garage entrance and exit is flared. So, and I understand that it makes it easier to pull in and pull out. But it does make it then closer to the crosswalk and the stop sign. President McKay I'd like to make a motion to table this item until we can get some of these questions answered.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Klein? Oh, so we have a motion by Barbara Kiley Miller to table the item, seconded by Commissioner Kudo. Discussion? Commissioner Klein?
I was going to ask a question. Sorry, I'm having bad internet. I keep turning off my camera. The driveways, which is the in and which is the out? Has that been determined?
They're both in and out. They serve the northern section of parking and the southern section of parking individually. And so the southern one, I believe, services 13 parking spaces, and the northern one, the remainder of them, you cannot drive through the spaces. And so I believe that's a quantity. The parking plan was provided within the packet as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kiley Miller, could you said until these questions can be answered, could you clearly articulate the questions that are outstanding for you?
Sure. Where is the stop sign to be placed in relationship to the driveway? Where the distance from the driveway to the crosswalk? Because that's the only thing, is how does this relate to the intersection and the safety? That's my main concern. And so can you say again? And maybe if we had some art, with a little drawn to scale automobile or, SUV or something there, it'd be a lot easier to see that, oh yeah, there's plenty of difference, or that, no, this is an issue. But right now, it looks like a car, especially on that artwork on page 21, it looks like a car pulls out and it's in the intersection as opposed, and, over the crosswalk. So
I can speak. So you can see from the picture of the existing space where the crosswalk is, and it's in the stop sign paint line is right where the sanitary sewer is. So you can kind of confer where the stop sign is, and it's below the driveway.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that.
But again, I'm speculating from what I see, and the civil engineers better to place the stop sign. But, you know, I'm asking the question is if the building is back 10 more feet, what does that change?
Well, maybe it needs to be back more from Capitol Drive. I don't know. But if we're supposed to be saying that, okay, the setback is fine the way it is based on that intersection, there's questions about that intersection I'm not comfortable with right now.
Bart, are we talking about, is the capital setback an issue here?
No, that is not to be confirmed. That is compliant with code for the zoning review.
Yeah, so I know we're in discussion and I know I feel like we do this every meeting where we want more information on something that's actually not relevant to what we're talking about in order to make our decision. I would prefer we didn't, but I know there is a motion and a second. So, you know, I'll get to voting on that.
Yeah, I think we do need to move through this motion at this time. Is there any for Director Griepentrag?
Can I just clarify with Attorney Bayer the difference between tabling something and deferring something? I believe there is a technical difference.
Well, tabling it just stays there until somebody formally moves to remove it from the table. Deferring, if you're going to defer, my recommendation would be to make a specific date that you're going to take it up again at, but it's up to the body.
Yeah. I would be, I will not be in favor of this motion. I think that it's an effort to obstruct a process. Commissioner Klein.
Let me get my mute here. I don't understand what we're waiting for. Is it only the position of the stop sign?
Well, and the distance. I mean, I'm just based on the drawings provided by the developer. And we have to figure out how does this work with this intersection and the safety. We haven't heard, I think maybe it was one of the residents who asked about, you know, how do we make our decisions? Do we have input from traffic engineers or the police department? And so and maybe because this corner is rounded, it's not real clear. Okay, a car pulls out, it looks like it's immediately over the crosswalk. You know, if I took one of those little cars that looks like it's driving east on Capitol or parked along the curb, it just doesn't look like this is a safe design. It's going to be over the crosswalk.
I'm trying to understand.
I'm sorry, and so if deferring this item until we can get that information is the proper way to do it, I'd be fine to withdraw my motion and make a new one. And it has nothing to do with interrupting the process. It's just if we're supposed to be discussing how this relates to that intersection, I think that's a key piece of information.
Commissioner Klein? Oh, Commissioner Wickland and.
Well, no, I'll let.
I'm trying to have a discussion and I have to raise my hand and have a discussion. So, you know, with all due respect, I'm just trying to understand. I mean, we know the stop sign is somewhere in that little green area there. How does the position of the wall of the building affect that? And how many feet would it move to affect that? Right? Or is it the fact that the whole building exists? Because that's what I'm not understanding. If that whole building was back 20 feet, hypothetically, would there still be an issue with this driveway and the crosswalk?
Maybe it needs to be back 2 feet. I don't have any idea, but we don't have the information necessary to know that, you know, and it's just the drawings that I've got in front of me. That's it. You know, there's nothing to indicate, yeah, this is standard, go ahead, or this is a little out of the ordinary. That's all I'm asking for is some additional clarification.
Well, I think the point, Director Griepentrag is not raising issues about the intersection. So we don't have any evidence that would substantiate that it's an atypical intersection. Commissioner Wickland?
Yeah, I just again like to reiterate that Therese did a nice job of describing where the stop sign is. I mean, I'm looking on Google Maps. They're not moving the stop sign, I don't think. They're not representing that they're moving it. The stop sign exists where it is, and the capital setback is not in question. So Therese's point on no matter where this setback goes on the east side, it's irrelevant to that. That's why I just wish we would focus on the relevant pieces. And again, we can approve or deny that request, but we always do this. Can we just focus on the relevant stuff?
So I'd like to call the question for this motion that's on the table. All right.
Well, I mean, I'd like to respond to Commissioner Wickland.
Okay.
if I mo for just a moment, I think we continue to ask questions of this project because every month that we take a look at this project, something changes. There's something new that has come about. You know, the first time we didn't know what this project looked like. And then there was a lot of conversation about affordable housing for the project. And now there's no affordable housing for this project. And now we know what it looks like, but we don't know where the intersection is. It's just, I think this keeps coming up because at no point have we ever gotten a full and complete picture of what this project is going to be when it's done. We're asked to sort of do this piecemeal. And so there's subsequent questions that come up every time. And I agree with you, it's a pain. And I would rather just do it whole hog, but that's not the way that it's ever presented to us.
Yeah, and I appreciate that point, but I don't think that, you know, affordable housing wasn't an issue in front of us, right? And
but it was certainly discussed ad nauseum.
Right, but it wasn't the
about
issue
how
in front of us.
important it was.
My point's still the same.
Yep.
I understand.
We're now out of scope. So I'd like to call the question.
Do we have to vote on that?
Yeah, so what's the, do we make a motion, Attorney Bear?
Yeah, you can make a motion. Is there a second? And then ask if there's a second on that, and then you vote on whether you're calling the question. And then if it's affirmative, then you move back to the underlying motion. If it's negative, then you continue to debate the issue of tabling, or excuse me, I apologize, not tabling. It was to adjourn the matter to another date.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to call the question. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Motion from President McKeag to call the question, second from Commissioner Pollock. All those in favor, show of hands or voice. Say aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Any opposed? So motion to call the question passes unanimously. Now I would like to take a vote on the matter, and what I'd like to do is go around once and please state your position and how you came to that conclusion in response to the process questions that was. Yes, Attorney Bear?
I just wanted to clarify, just so that everybody understands that's watching, is that we're now back on the motion as whether or not to.
Oh,
adjourn
right.
it, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So can you read back the motion around adjourning the matter to a future meeting, just to make sure that we have the right language?
I believe Barbara just her motion was to table the item. I don't believe you explicitly said to a further date. You just said to table it for more information and questions addressed.
Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if that hamstrings the body from moving forward, and that's not what you intended, right?
Yeah, President McKay, if I could add, it shouldn't be that difficult for staff to gather this additional information.
No.
So
The point is,
table it till like next month or our next meeting.
Friendly amendment, would you change the word to defer?
I certainly would. I'll amend my motion to defer to next month to give staff time to research this and come back with the answers to the questions about how this relates to that intersection, stopping, crosswalk, all of that.
Okay.
And I would just suggest to ask if there's unanimous consent of the body to accept that amendment.
Mr. Commissioner Kudo, do you accept that amendment?
I accept that amendment.
Okay, I accept that amendment. All right, let's take a vote on that amendment. The motion is to defer the matter to a future meeting when we can have answers to Commissioner Kylie Miller's questions about the intersection. All those, why don't we take a roll call vote, please?
Therese Klein.
I'm sorry, I'm voting for whether we should defer.
Yeah.
And my vote's no.
Okay. Josh Pollock.
No.
Dan Wickland.
No.
Eric Kudo.
Yes.
Barbara Kylie Miller.
Yes.
President McKeag?
No. Okay, is there a motion to, regarding the setback?
Are we gonna, I apologize, are we gonna discuss our thought process post motion or prior to the motion? I missed where you put it.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking we would do it when there's a motion on the table. We've already, in the presentation and the overview of the jurisdiction from Attorney Bayer, as you'll recall, he said that according to the ordinance and the code, that there's basically we're reviewing the setback. And if we feel that it needs to move, there are two reasons why it can move, because it relates to the parking or it relates to an atypical intersection. As you will recall in the memo, there was no standing or substantiated evidence for either of those two criteria. So that's why the suggested motion is to approve the setback as presented, because there is no evidence at this time. If there is a motion to move the setbacks, then it needs to be indicated how and why. Commissioner Wickland.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the approximate average 22-foot side setback from the curb line, approximate average 0.95 feet setback from the property line of the proposed redevelopment to be located at 2418-20-28 as submitted.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wickland, seconded by Commissioner Klein. I'd like to go around. I'll start by example. So I will be supporting this motion because there is no substantial evidence to suggest that this is an atypical intersection or that there is parking that will be impacted by this setback. And all other matters that were brought forward tonight are not germane, in my opinion, in my understanding of what's been brought for us forth this evening. So who would like to go next? Commissioner Wickland.
Yeah, I made the motion because I agree with that. I agree the issue before us is very specific, and this seems to be within the realm of something we'd approve.
Who would like to go next, or should I just call on you?
Oh,
Commissioner.
there you go. Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not going to vote for this. I think it is an atypical intersection, and as it's currently configured, it's not safe for pedestrians or drivers, and it needs more work, whether that's further setback or whatever, but it needs more work.
Commissioner Kudo?
I mean, you know, I'm sort of beating a dead horse on this development from my perspective, but I'm going to vote no. I voted no the first time because of the loss of parking and the no off-street parking and the insufficient off-street parking. I voted no because I never believed the up to 20% of affordable housing. No, we have all discussed a number of things this evening, and I'm well within to discuss the question, which was why I'm taking this position. I did not believe up to the 20% of affordable housing that was stated originally, because there was never a guarantee, and now the affordable housing doesn't exist at all. I'm voting no because of the absolutely overwhelming neighborhood opposition to this project from, I would say, well over 90% of the people that we've heard from. And I'm voting no because I don't believe this project fits in with the community. I don't believe that it's safe. I don't believe that that corner will be safe. I don't believe that we've been given a complete project at any time during any of our deliberations for us to take a look at. And I believe, frankly, that this project was piecemealed on purpose so that we couldn't discuss it as a whole. So I'll be voting no.
Commissioner Pollak, Commissioner Klein.
I'm gonna vote yes. I think that the proposed build-to line is appropriate due to the safety and parking considerations that are required.
I think I'm next. So I'm voting yes. You know, as others have said, I think this, for what the Plan Commission is here to vote on, the building setback, this is not an atypical intersection for a commercial district. And I don't believe that the building setback impacts parking and parking safety at all.
Thank you. And so let's, at this point, take a roll call vote, please.
All right, Barbara Kylie Miller,
No.
Did we lose her?
Hey, Crystal froze.
Or she can hold really still.
I know.
You guys don't know her talents.
The lighting.
oh, okay, now we're back.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, I'm sorry, let's try this again. Barbara Kylie Miller,
No.
President McKeag,
Yes.
Therese Klein,
Yes.
Eric Kudo,
No.
Josh Pollock,
Yes.
and Dan Wickland.
Yes.
All right. 4-2 passes.
And before we move on, Commissioner Kudo, that was the type of, your position was the type of campaigning comment that I think we want to stay away from. So we're going to stay germane to our discussions moving forward.
No, excuse me. I mean, I was asked, we were all asked, and you mentioned during the meeting that the person wanted us to explain how we came to our positions and what our vote was. You said that we were going to answer those questions. And then later in the meeting, you said again that you wanted us to state our positions and how we got there. That's exactly what I did. If others chose not to do that, that's perfectly acceptable. But I was following your direction and I was answering the question. So please don't try to accuse me on the record of campaigning when I was quite literally following your directions.
I stand corrected. Moving on to item 4, it's an update on commercial zoning update project.
Yeah, so this is just really a brief update. Since we last met, we did hold a kickoff meeting with Codametrics and Duncan Associates. I believe several of you were on, if not all, at some point. The meeting has been recorded and is posted to the website. So if you didn't see that, please feel free to once again check that out at the website for the project. Within that conversation, there was discussion with respect to the working group for the project. And based on that discussion, there has been a proposed expansion of participation to include a representative from the Parks and Public Spaces Committee, which was formerly also Bike and Ped. So Parks and Public Spaces and the Human Relations Commission, as well as one at-large community member. So per village code, those nominations will be brought forward. So as was discussed last time, the individual committee members were asked to volunteer themselves to the chairs for their respective roles. The chairs then provided their nominations to me. Those nominations will be on the February 7th village board meeting for confirmation as required per village code. After that February 7th village board meeting, we hope to have those nominations confirmed, at which point we will start working with that group. The first things that we will do include identifying stakeholder interviews and dates for public workshops. So they will be utilized to help us provide feedback with respect to how best to reach their groups. And so that really is what we have here. We're kind of delayed a little bit. And so if you look at the project scope and timeline, we're probably a couple of weeks back of where we thought we were going to be. But the consultant does believe that should not pose a problem. And she was comfortable with us clarifying this upfront just to make sure that everyone's comfortable with representation on that group. So the primary update is we had the kickoff meeting. The working group has been proposed to be expanded for further representation. And those nominations from the individual committees will be placed on the February 7th meeting. That's really all we have at this point. In the February Plan Commission meeting, assuming that we have one, I will hopefully have more confirmed dates and things of that nature to share. But at this point, it really is kind of just waiting for confirmation of those representations.
And I didn't hear if Bart said, I know it was, I listened to the recording. I didn't say on the meeting because we would have had a quorum of village board. And so I listened to the recording. I heard the suggestion of having a Wilson Drive task process. I'm not proposing that at this time, but I will add an at-large position that I'll bring forward to the board on February 7th. And I also, we talked about, Bart and I talked through the request and the consultant asked for this committee group or working group after the RFP had been, written in the proposal, the contract awarded. So this is our way of accommodating that request. There was a comment at the kickoff meeting that this working group would have some type of influence that other people wouldn't have. We will work, that is not the intention of this, and that was not the request of the consultant. And so when we take board action, we will outline very clearly what the roles are and how to keep, make sure that that doesn't happen, because I don't think that that would be fair. So I just wanted to offer that since I wasn't at the meeting. All right, any questions at this time about the update or next steps? All right, hearing none, seeing none. If anything comes up in the meantime, please send emails. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, do we have future items?
I can share that no applications have been received. Tomorrow is the technical deadline to publish them for Class 2 notice. I don't anticipate getting any in. And so there will be no standard applications on the agenda, but if there is a need for a meeting, whether it's with respect to the commercial zoning update or otherwise, I will keep you informed.
All right, Commissioner Wickland?
Or were we just not, I mean, maybe this isn't an item, it's a question. We seem to have like a lot of meetings now, which is great because I love seeing everybody. But why didn't we have meetings before? Were people not doing anything here? Like, remember how we'd skip a few months?
Yeah, we've been pretty active with conditional use permits and discussions of zoning updates. And so I think a lot of what you're and the comprehensive plan as well. So perhaps prior to those bigger projects, there might have been months in between where there were no applications in. And so I don't think anything was skipped necessarily. I just think perhaps the village is working on other items. You have been very active once again with the comprehensive plan and then parking updates for all of last year. And now with the commercial zoning update, I presume that we'll also have a similar amount of kind of update informational meetings. But I don't think there was anything skipped with respect to processing applications. We just this is just how it falls sometimes, I guess.
Okay.
Dan, perhaps you're thinking fondly of those months where we had all those solar panel applications to approve.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
Thankfully, that's on staff's desk now.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second Commissioner Wickland.
You see, we get along, Eric.
Right when it counts.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Wickland, seconded by Commissioner Kudo. All those in favor, show of hands or voice.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7:45 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.